Hey, Frank, you'd mentioned coaching over at Gorman. Did you all tell them your story when you started wrestling at Bonanza? You lost, what, 10,
seven matches, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you won the state championship. And does that kind of compare maybe to your UFC journey? You lost 3 or so in a row, and now all of a sudden you're kind of back in.
Yeah, that was actually a time in my life where there was a guy named Russ Leet. I think he just recently retired too. He was the head wrestling coach, and I think he ended up becoming a dean at what's the school in Valley View or Flamingo in Buffalo. It's a high school.
Spring Valley.
Spring Valley. I think he was the dean over there before he retired. But very guy from went to Northern Iowa, very mentally, very focused, very tough guy. And I was always a very big, strong, fast, natural athlete. It's usually a recipe for mental weakness, which I had in abundance. And so, where those first couple matches occurred at that time, here I'm a football player. one of the fastest guys on the field. I'm even like 230 pounds. Everybody when they see me is like, oh my gosh, you're 6'2", 230. You run how fast? I'm even on track and field, setting records with the discus. So to go out there and get smashed by guys that didn't look like if we stood together, it's like, well, who do you want to have as your genetic carrier and take genes from? You're like, oh, that one, But then all of a sudden you see this guy and he's smashing me in the ground, and 30 seconds later I'm coming back. It was very mentally discouraging, very hard to deal with. But then that was one of the times where, even though I didn't probably vocalize it and put it into words, that I tried to quit on him. I really did. I tried. I think I didn't show up for one of the weigh-ins, and he pulled me out of class and just said, well, there's a couple of different ways we can go about this. You can either run from it, and this is going to set a trend for the rest of your life, or you could suck it up like any man does, and when we have obstacles, you're going to just face them head on. And not that I have any magic formula for it. He goes, there's no magic bean, man. That's what he said, no magic beans. I can't say going left, going right, going through it, going over, but I can guarantee if you don't show up, we're not going to figure it out. So show up, lose again, lose 50 times in a row. Keep trying different ways, and that helped set me on the path of going in and getting to who I am now. And I think you've seen throughout my career, I've had some incredible highs and some really lows. And the one thing, and again, I wish I could say that I will never quit because it's all on me. I really have. I've married very well in life. I have a wife that loves me for me at my best, at my worst. So at times when I've quit on myself, I've had people around me, and then on top of that, not just her, but James Horn's one of my best friends. Ricky Lindell's one of my best friends. I have my coaches are my best friends in and outside the octagon, and they come in and are able to sit there and kind of, when I've had those self-doubt, which, come on, I'm human. You don't think I doubt myself? All the time, more times often than not. But then I have people that kind of can, whenever I can't carry my own weight, kind of straighten me out and say, let's keep walking forward, man. Let's do this,
You're in your mid-30s now. Are you a different fighter than 14 years ago? Are you more analytical maybe in your approach?
Yes, there's several big things that I do differently. One of them is strategy and game planning for a fight. Very beginning of my career, all the way up until finally when I made Ricky Lindell the head coach, I never game planned. I actually believed against it. I would talk a little bit in interviews, but I thought maybe I shouldn't tell people I don't exactly game plan, but I wouldn't watch footage on my opponents because I had this thought that I'm a martial artist and we're fighters. If I get into a fight in the street, I don't get to game plan. You have to go out there and react and move and go. And then, basically, when Ricky started doing the game plan, talking about, look, the best teams, they do this football, statistics, baseball, Moneyball. That's why I call him Moneyball, because he loves that, reference, And so then I realized you're right. In war and battle, Sun Tzu, know yourself, know your enemy. It talks about the percentage of how many battles you'll win. If you know neither yourself or your enemy, you're never going to win. If you just know your enemy, you'll win more often than not. If you know yourself and the enemy and the terrain, your chances of success move up. So then I realized, yes, why not take advantage of the fact that I can pull out footage and statistics on my opponents and train specifically for them. It's not going to make me a weaker martial artist. It's going to make me train more effectively for the guy that I'm fighting, but it isn't like all of a sudden if they change the fight, I can't fight now. I can't figure out how to all of a sudden fight a different human being. We just make adjustments now, but this way my training is much more effective. We're not sitting there with Arlovski. I'm not having my training partners throwing triangles on me from the bottom. They play a lot of get-up game. The way he grabs and does a scissor and pushes and gets back up to his feet. So then my training partners, like James, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? But when we train and we roll, he has to get up. He has to avoid submissions, avoid getting hit, and he's looking for any opportunity to get up. So now I'm not really spending my time blocking triangles and omoplatas and arm bars. I'm spending my time on how do I hold somebody down and beat them up and hurt them and push my position to advance it, to look for that submission on a guy that I know is trying to get away from me. There's a difference on being on top of a guy who's trying to play back with you and submit. That I don't have to. I'm worried about the submission is what I'm putting my energy towards, and not the stand up or trying to hold a guy down. We miss that element sometimes as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. We don't get to deal with that too often. That's why sometimes we have a hard time in the fights, because I go to Drysdale's, nobody's trying to get up. If I get on top of somebody, they're trying to go for arm bars, sweeps. They are trying to finish me from their back. So their energy's spent there. So my energy's spent towards trying to diffuse their guard, break off their submissions, and advance my position, right? I don't have to worry about them standing up. So all of a sudden we get into the fights and I go to get on top of somebody in their guard and they grab my wrist, grab my head, they post, jump up, and I'm looking at them like, well, what did you just do? You want to fight me, right? They're like, no, we're going to fight here. I'm like, oh, well, man, I was in a good position and I just gave it up. So that is, again, game planning goes back to that, where now I have James as a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, and every once in a while, his reactions come out and keep me honest, because, hey, anybody can do anything, so it keeps in that element of surprise. But now instead of, if I'm in his guard, 10% of the time he'll go for an arm bar or something from the bottom, so I have to be aware of it. I get, in a triangle. But 90% of the time he's going for stand-ups and trying to get back up to his feet. Whereas if I were to fight, another like a Verdum, probably be 90% throwing submissions from his back and sweeps, and only 10% looking to get up.
Well, why take this fight? Why jump right back in? I mean, is it just it's here in Vegas and you like to fight in Vegas? Is it because it's real quick? And you want to get back in there and you just want to do it?
Yeah, I got the phone call. Hey, we really like you to go ahead and fight, and and at first I didn't jump at it. At first I was like, I was kind of looking forward to what I said earlier. Have a couple beers, smoke some cigars, hang out with the family. I have a 2-week vacation. I had a book to go out to my uncle's property up in Washington. Kids shoot arrows. They've had a pretty poor summer in my opinion, because during the week dad's working, and then I'm tired. So I get home and they're like, hey Dad, let's go play catch, and I'm like, can I just sit there and watch you? So I pull out the chair and I'm out there in my front driveway just staring at my kids play with each other. So I was looking forward to giving them, hey, we go out there, Dad's not training now, I can shoot arrows, 4-wheel it, we're gonna have fun. So it wasn't an ideal situation at first when it came up, but I was told like, hey, the UFC, we need you to do this. This is, it's good for you, it's good for us. Okay, if that's what's necessary. The UFC stood by me when other organizations probably would have cut me. You know what I mean? When I've had 4 losses in a row and they still gave me a 5th fight, how do I say, no? And so, at first I was reluctant. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want to fight Andrei at this point in our careers. I didn't want to fight this soon at first. I wanted to spend time with the family. But then when I realized that, hey, work calls us up. Sometimes who here doesn't have to do things at first? Yeah, that's not ideal. But then you know what? We're men. We all are, not to be sexist, sorry. We're people that provide. I'm the head of my household, and I have people that depend on me. So then you clear your mind from any kind of issues or negativity that's like, I don't want. Now it's like 100% full bore. I'm ready. I'm going. There's no talk now of not doing this. This is what it is, and this is the best situation we're going to make of it, and keep moving forward.